I also want to tell you that I also always liked the name Peace Action. Okay? I want you to think about the word peace action for those of you who haven't taken that time for a while. You know, I actually went on the internet last night and I looked up the synonyms for the words peace and the words action. And you know, the synonyms for the word peace are actually tranquility and things of that nature. But the synonyms for the word action, there's two synonyms that really I thought was kind of interesting. One of them was war. Isn't that interesting? And the other one was lawsuits, which I also found to be interesting. Okay, and the reason for it is because I want people to understand, all right, that the people that support peace action, there seems to be this feeling out there that the people that I'm looking at in this room are people that, you know, I've heard people describe it. They've said they're for peace, they're wimps. They're peace, they're cheese eaters. Okay, there's a term that they use out there. There ain't no wimps and there ain't no cheese eaters in this room. All right? This is a room where people are the most courageous people that I've ever met, who always put their money where their mouth is, all right, and get out there and they get in the face of people like Vito Fossella. Because I'm going to tell you right now, while Vito Fossella is hiding out above somebody's garage right now, okay, and that's precisely what he's doing, okay, we're out here and we're talking about the war. And we're not talking about, you know, like what a good time we had in Washington. I see people around here who spend time at the ferry, and I see people that spend time in Vito Fossella's face who aren't afraid to walk up to his office where he hides out and walk right in there and stand there and say, we want to see Vito Fossella. And you want to know something? They did it. And they were willing to take the consequences for it, and they became known as the Fossella, what, 5, 15, 20, or something of that nature?
It grows every day.
It grows every single day, right? And that's why I'm proud of the people in this room, because courage is an extremely rare commodity in today's world, and I'm looking at the people that have the most of it, so I applaud you. It is curiously easy to be against the war in Iraq. Curiously easy. It is a war that we got into it under a false pretense. It's a lie, okay? So it's easy to oppose having gone into Iraq. It's easy to oppose what they did when they were in Iraq. They did not well discharge their responsibility to our troops. They did not well discharge their responsibilities to this nation. And most importantly, it is absolutely incredulous and a crime that they will okay, that they will not at this time get our troops out of Iraq. It's time to bring them home. It's well past time to bring those troops home, and I will call for that and constantly call for that. I can't tell you when the withdrawal stops, okay, but I can tell you when it starts. It should start the day after we get the next election, when we have a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress, and not a mealy-mouthed Democratic Congress, but Congress people who are willing to go in there and fight for what they believe in. Not say, hey, very good, I'm glad, I'll go. Because I'll tell you right now that the Congress that we have right now, how many times have we heard people say, hey, the Congress that we have right now is a Democratic Congress. It is a Democratic Congress. But we also know that there's some ideology that's involved in there. We have conservative Democrats who say, hey, we're not really sure that we should really be getting our troops out of Iraq. And then we have other Democrats that say, hey, maybe we should stay there a little bit longer. And then we have other Democrats who say, you know, even though we should get our troops out of there, we're going to fund this war a little bit longer. So I tell you, yeah, I'm going to vote for funding, but I'm only going to vote for funding for one purpose, for one military operation, and that's the withdrawal from this war. Okay, that's it. And I will tell you right now that what I'm doing with respect to the war in Iraq, right? People say, well, you know, does he really speak out against it? And Sally will tell you, and people in Peace Action will tell you that I come, and I do speak out against this, right? But I also joined a group, okay, a group of 10 people. There was only 10 of us at one time. Darcy Berner from Washington State, and a number of other, 10 Democrats altogether, 10 Democratic congressional candidates. And what we fought for is a document that's called the Responsible Plan to End the War in Iraq. And the reason that I consider this to be such an important document is because those 10 people not only wrote a manifesto of something of that nature that says, hey, one sentence, we have to get out. This is a document that's about 20 pages long. And this document not only talks about how we get out of Iraq, what it talks about is what we have to do to restore this nation to the appropriate footing that it deserves. All right? We have to look at it from the point of view that when we get out of Iraq, what has this war done to us as a nation? I'll tell you what this war has done to us as a nation. What it has done, do you remember when George Bush told us that we were attacked because we are free? Remember he told us that? We attack because they're afraid because we're free. And what was the first thing that George Bush did within a week after he made that statement? He decided to make us less free, right? And he passed the Patriot Act. And he went after the people in Guantanamo when he took away our civil rights. And he absolutely stepped on top of the Constitution. I heard somebody recently say that the people in Iraq need a Constitution. Somebody else said to me, he says, well, why don't we give them ours? We're not using it. All right, and that's absolutely true. So what we have to do is we have to restore our civil liberties and we have to restore our values, our constitutional values. That's one of the main things we have to do. We have to make sure that we take care of the people in Iraq after we get out. Some people say, if you leave, you recognize that there's going to be problems over there. Of course there's going to be problems over there. But those problems are problems of our making, and if we keep our troops there for 100 years, which is what John McCain wants to do, and what Vito Fossella wants to do, and frankly what some Democrats want to do, you know what's going to happen under those circumstances? When we leave in 100 years, the same problems are going to exist. We must get out of there right now, and then we must speak to the other nations and use diplomacy in those other nations in order to get them to understand that they can't just interfere in Iraq, they must do what's necessary in order to secure Iraq and secure the Iraqi people. That's the way you handle it if you're the United States of America right now, not by keeping your troops over there. And we have to make sure that we understand what caused this war. And this war was not caused, I'm going to repeat this, this war was not caused by weapons of mass destruction in there. They knew there were no weapons of mass destruction. It wasn't caused by vengeance for 9/11. Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. All right? It didn't even have anything to do with getting rid of Saddam Hussein. He's been gone for years and we're still there right now. It had to do with one thing. What was it? Oil. Okay, oil. So we as a nation, and we speak about this in the plan to end the war in Iraq, we as a nation have to make sure that we set the conditions that are necessary that this kind of a war never occurs again. And one of those conditions, the first condition, is to get out of Iraq. And the second thing that we have to do is we have to put this nation, in fact, I made a speech about this last year in this very room, okay, in which I set out an entire plan on what we must do in order to make sure that within a 10-year period of time, we are free of the oil of the Middle East, that we are independent, and we have no reason to be going into other nations in order to get their oil. That's a matter of national security. I consider it to be a priority. We will be looking at alternative energy sources. We will be looking at wind. We will be looking at solar power. We will be looking at water. We will be looking at tidal. We will be looking at everything that's necessary. But we have to do it now. And do you know why we have to do it now? Do you remember Al Gore? Remember him? Does anybody remember Al Gore? Do you remember what Al Gore said? Do you remember what Al Gore said? Al Gore said we had 10 years, all right, from an environmental point of view, from an energy point of view, in order to turn it around. You know what the problem is?
It's 18.
That was 2 years ago. We got 8 years. So I'll give it 10 at this particular time, but we have to start ourselves off on it. Because if we secure ourselves as a nation when it comes to energy, then we secure ourselves against war as a nation. Are you with me on that? Yeah.